All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank everybody for coming. My name is Leo Daido. I'm the director of the Great Valley LaunchBox. Today we have three former Penn State alum, well, I guess current Penn State alum, that are local entrepreneurs, and they very graciously agreed to participate in our roundtable panel discussion. We have Jess from LLUNA, Asia from Redoux, is that right, Asia? And John, I don't have your company in front of me. What is the name of your company again, John?
Merit Systems.
There it is.
Yes,
I'm so worried about trying to pronounce your last name that I...
Oh, it's easy. It's like you're from Northeast Philly. Juzbasich, same thing. All right. So it works.
That's a great way to say that. Okay, so I'm just going to have everyone introduce themselves real quickly, give you a little bit about their background, and then I'm going to turn it over to Doug Schumer, who is going to facilitate the panel discussion. If you have any problems hearing anything, or there's any technical problems, just use the raise your hand button on the bottom of the video window. If you have a question that you'd like to ask, just use the chat, and we will slip that in line with the questions that we accumulated beforehand. So Jess, do you want to start?
Sure. My name is Jess Podgajny. I'm so glad to be here with everybody this evening. I am the co-founder and CEO of LLUNA, and we are an HR technology platform that helps people first companies attract and retain top talent by offering personalized employment arrangements. I graduated from Penn State in 2003, spent most of my career in client service and management consulting, and recently basically took the leap to move into an HR tech startup after really the culmination of a bunch of different career steps. So I'm new to the tech startup space, but an entrepreneur at heart. Glad to be here.
Great, thank you, Jess. Asia?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Asia Gran. I graduated from Penn State main campus from the Smule College of Business in 2017 with a degree in marketing. I currently am the co-founder and CEO of Redoux, which is a vegan skincare line focused on sophisticated scents. We launched in New York, but of course with the pandemic, everything happened, and now we're situated in Westchester and Philadelphia. And before I started Redoux, I was working in design consulting in New York, which was fun, but just realized the corporate life wasn't for me and took a full deep dive into, oh, I have a double connect. Sorry, I was making sure that I wasn't gonna lose audio. But yeah, I'm excited for everyone to be here and excited to hear everyone else's story.
Great, thank you, Asia. John?
Yeah, all right. You can call me JJ too, if you like, Leo. Either one works. All right. I graduated at Penn State in Malvern campus there. I have the Master of Leadership Development degree, and that was in 2006. I did undergraduate work in Philadelphia at Penn at the Wharton School of Business. I worked for IBM for about 15 years, then a few other companies, got outsized, downsized, right-sized, bankruptcyized, and so I decided, you know what, I could do that on my own. And so in 2001, went into business, and we had an interesting fourth month when the World Trade Towers got blown up. That sort of set us back a little bit, and but we've managed to make it through the recession as well as this pandemic, and we're in the training business. We do training to a variety of clients, commercial clients, and that's worked out. I have a team in Europe and a team in the US, and we do a wide variety of training, technical as well as leadership training, project management, and others. So we've been doing this now 20 years. It'll be in June.
Wow, awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Doug Schumer. Doug is the faculty director of the Great Valley LaunchBox and our resident MC of these events. Doug, it's all yours.
Okay, so welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I think we're about to have a very interesting and exciting really kickoff event focused on students. So what we'll do first is ask the panel some general questions and then maybe some more focused questions. And as thoughts come to mind, add yours to the chat and Leo will vector those to me and get my attention. And having said that, let's take off. So maybe each of you, I have 3 questions for the entrepreneur alumni. And if each of you would spend a moment or two describing first, why did you become an entrepreneur? And what was your key driving force to become an entrepreneur?
I can go first, Doug, if that works.
That works.
Great. So I think I'm the daughter of an entrepreneur. I grew up in a house where my dad ran his own company. I spent my life working summers in his manufacturing plant and eventually made my way up to the front office. I got to answer phones and file and do all of those fun things. So in a way, I feel like I always knew I was an entrepreneur and would be or become an entrepreneur. And then when I graduated from Penn State, I looked for companies that had that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, that were looking for employees that wanted to, change things up or come with ideas. And so I was really fortunate to work for 3 different organizations that I felt like really valued an entrepreneurial spirit. And then about 4 years ago, I went independent. I left the management consulting firm that I was working for and went into consulting on my own. So that was kind of my first step as the solopreneur. And then more recently pivoting into the HR technology space. I think, it's one of those things you almost can't describe it because I'm like compelled. I have to, it's like I have ideas. I need to run with them. I need to pursue them. And so I guess if that answers your question, it's kind of always been in my nature. And I looked for companies that had the opportunity for me to tap into that. And then eventually when I had the right idea, now was the right time to actually pursue a business that hopefully I'll be able to scale.
Thank you. That was very interesting. And it raises more questions. Actually, if there's time at the end, I'd be interested in knowing what each of you feels an entrepreneur is. What does that mean? You refer to entrepreneurial spirit. Maybe in a visceral way through osmosis, we'll figure that out over the next hour.
Great.
JJ, what are your
Sure.
thoughts?
Similar story. Grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad, we had a catering business, and so as literally 10 years old, you start working, and and that's how you started. Even though I went to study business at Penn, but even when I joined IBM, I was in sales, which you kind of got a geography and you had to sell things, so you still had entrepreneurial work to do. And your question is what is an entrepreneur? I think is a good one. It's you wear many hats. Once you left companies and you don't have that superstructure or organization behind you, then you really have to be able to do everything, and you have to want to do it. And I think a big piece of it is you have to want to control your destiny. And that's why, after where I was downsized and bankruptcyized out and everything else about 5 times in a row, they were good jobs, but poor management, dumb mistakes. I felt that, I'm tired of this. I'm going to do it on my own again. And always have had side businesses too in the catering business for most of my life. And so I always had, even when I worked for large organizations, a side business, if you will. Because it's just part of just how you think, and you like to have that responsibility for the entire success or failure of the organization, be it small or large. And that's why I enjoy it very much.
Thank you,
There's
John.
stress though.
Stress. We'll probably get into that a little bit as well. Asia, do you have some thoughts that you could share with us on how you became an entrepreneur?
Sure. It's so funny because when I hear these stories, I feel like it's all the same, but also very, very different. My father was an entrepreneur and still is an entrepreneur. He runs his own athletic development company. And I always, from a young age, was just doing a whole bunch of little side projects. My first one my parents like to tell me about is that I would sit outside at the end of our driveway, and I didn't like that everyone was selling lemonade. I was like, oh no, it's a saturated market. And I would sell little drawings that I made and like stop cars driving in front of our house. And I said, buy my art. So it's just kind of been a lifelong journey from there. And to your point around what is an entrepreneur, I think it's someone who, at least from my perspective, it's someone that has an issue sitting still and an issue taking directions, which through school people tell you are bad things. But it's, for me, when I left school, I also started at IBM and very quickly got into like the habit of what a corporate job is, coming in 9 to 5, sometimes 9 to 9, and just getting a little bit bored and wanting to do more that was specifically my own. And then that just got to a point where I got more excited waking up every day doing the thing that was mine rather than going to work.
Thank you so much. Was there a tipping point in your journey where you knew that this is what you had to be doing, that this was right? Anyone? All of
I
you?
can speak to that. Mine was actually very recent. I left my full-time job in October of 2020 to pursue this full-time because we were doing, as you all probably have experienced, there's, you do your side hustle as your entrepreneurship as your side hustle, and you have your main hustle so you can pay the bills, and hopefully at some point it tips over. But I'm a spiritual type of person, wouldn't say religious, but I like seeing what the world and what the outside is telling me, because you guys have probably experienced this also. There's kind of like these serendipitous moments where you're like, oh, I guess this is what I should be doing. And for me, it was last year we applied for this very large grant, and I kind of made a promise to myself that if we won this grant, or if we closed on this deal with this very, very prominent retail partner, that if either one of those events happened, I will quit my job. And then both of the events happened. And I didn't quit my job. And then another event happened. We were in the New York Times last year, and then I didn't quit my job. And then another thing happened, and I was like, okay, I think the universe is trying to tell me that it's time for me to quit my job.
Thank you. Yeah, those were a lot of loud signals, and you heard some of them. Others?
For me, I think the tipping point, I worked for an incredible management consulting firm. I was their chief people officer. I loved the company, but also, was a new mom at the time. So this is about 4 years ago, maybe almost 5 years ago. And I had my first child at that point. I have 3 now. So, I just kind of reflected. It was almost like a life reflection to say, like, I knew I always wanted to do something on my own. And I was like, what am I doing it for now? And so I knew that family was a priority and I wanted more flexibility. And this is part of why LLUNA was born, the idea of personalizing employment arrangements, because at different points in your life, you want or need different things from your employer. And I sat down with my husband and I said, maybe it's a few years earlier than I thought I would do it, but I think now's the time. Like I'm ready to be my boss and to work for us, for our family, and try to pursue, solo consulting to pay the bills, and then work on the LLUNA idea in parallel until I kind of finished having my kids. And my third baby was the moment at which I was ready to truly launch LLUNA.
To get out of the house.
No. I mean, we're in the house. I had my third baby March 7th of last year. So
Whoa.
I right away, I was like, oh no, what's going to happen? COVID's here. And it turns out it's actually kind of a signal, I think, Asia, to your point, that COVID has really shined a spotlight on this concept of like, how are we working and how are employers supporting people where they are and with what they need. So our platform very closely aligns with what's relevant today.
Well, I think there's also a sense of you want to take charge of your own destiny. That you have to, you really, to me, you realize that you can make decisions and you can, you impact others as well. One thing about I find with the CEO is you impact other people. Like I always feel great responsibility because I have like 20 families that depend on me, you know, and so I have to do a good job, you know. So you have like this, so pressure, you know, the motivation to succeed, I think, is even more so because you have other families depending on you, and so you do extra, to me, cautious but a fine job as best you can at it, and to me, that's part of it is the spirit, and you know, you get pushed into it. Actually, I didn't get pushed into it. I wanted to do it. It was like, you know, this is a time we just go on our own and let's give it a shot, and we did, and it worked. You know, it's we had like an opportunity, and so let's take this opportunity and go. So you know, you have to see them, and then like you did as well, is to see the opportunity and then take it. I think that's a big piece of it. Is do you recognize opportunities? Are you willing to act on them?
So is there an element of luck to this? Maybe the question is, how did the idea for your business come about? Did it come to you, or was there something that you just loved and you created that from yourself?
Well, in our case, it evolved. We didn't start out in the training business. It was about 2 or 3 years after we started that we got into training more by accident. And we realized that we had the skill set, a technical skill set that was valuable. And then we expanded it. We had our first employee in like 2003, 2002. And then we used contractors because that model was easier for us. It was better. They liked it that way. And so we don't have a large number of employees. We have a good number of contractors, and we might be their only source of income or jobs, if you will. And that's how we structured it, and it seems to work good. But it evolved. It took like the first 2-3 years till we finally like got lucky a little bit, and that helps. It's other people's bad luck helps too. And so then you just happen to be in the right place, the right time. You got the right phone call. Next thing you know, you're pulling in real money from these clients. And so that, to me, luck plays a big part in every job. You know, there's many, I think, Bill Gates that never made it, but we never heard of them. Okay. And that's why we haven't heard of them. And same thing with Bezos and others. Luck plays a big piece of it. Right place, right time, right phone call, and you're there. Try to make your luck. Put yourself in the right place at the right time.
Other thoughts before we leave this topic on how the idea for your business came about?
Yeah, I think what you said, John, around making luck is really it. There's little things that turn into big things. Something that we try to practice is just kindness to everyone that you meet, because you never know who that person is going to be or how you're going to work with that person in however many years. For example, I went to school with this, our graphic designer is a friend, not even a friend. We just went to school together from elementary school through high school. We didn't talk all through college, and I followed her on social media, and she did cool art. And I reached out to her, and she's like, I'd love to work on this with you. And now she's like our most valuable employee and does all of our branding and drives up. She lives in Richmond and like helps with production and manufacturing and like any type of events. And that was someone I met when I was 8 years old and has been completely invaluable to my business. So 1, luck, and 2, just practicing kindness with everyone has been like our recipe for success.
Thank you.
Asia, I love that. The idea of like I remember when my sister was going to Penn State. She's about 7 years younger than I am. And she said, what's your piece of advice? And I said, my only piece of advice is be nice to everyone. And not that you wouldn't want to be nice, but like, just remember that you don't know when that person's gonna, circle back into your life. And it's more fun anyway to just connect with people and create a network. And I think I saw a question pop up in the chat that, what's your greatest asset? I think it's the network. I reflect on my time at Penn State, and there's people that, 2003 is a long time ago. There's people that I went to school with that I haven't really connected with very much since, that I know I can just pick up, and I have just kind of picked up my laptop and sent them a note and said, hey, can we connect? Let's get on a call. Would love to pick your brain about something. And it's so strong to have those connections, and just to know that you can rely on your network. And I think that is how you make your luck, that you're like, wow, who would have a good point of view on this? Or who's going to provide me some valuable feedback, or potentially who could connect me to somebody else that can get me the right information. So yeah, I think it is about making luck, and certainly like kind of nurturing your network over time.
I second that. You got to make it with the network of people is really your most valuable asset that you have.
Yeah.
So you didn't just sit and wait for your lottery number to come up. You made your luck.
Yeah, for sure. I think Asia said it earlier, like we as entrepreneurs, there's something like innate, I think, that you can't really sit still, or like these things come to you and you're like, I've got to do something about it. So not being able to sit still and then being motivated to like kind of like go down the path and see where something might end up is, I think, all part of the entrepreneurial journey.
Thank you. So this, I'm going to take a little detour for those who may not be thinking of starting their own business, but have that spirit that you're talking about. Have any of you observed in larger corporations the opportunity to be an entrepreneur, to lead your own venture and be nurtured and in some ways supported, encouraged within the framework of a corporation?
I can jump in there with my point of view. I'd love to hear what Asia and John have to say here as well. In a lot with my management consulting background, I've worked with a lot of multinational organizations that are trying, I would say, more and more to focus on opportunities for innovation. So how can they be innovative inside? So the entrepreneur type of model. But I would actually suggest starting with the values of the organization. So look at their purpose and their values, and is there anything entrepreneurial about those values? So, some that come to mind are companies that embrace failure, like saying, we want to fail forward and learn from the way that failure, let's try it and see what happens and learn from it, and then come up with something better for next time. Or even outwardly saying that we value the entrepreneurial nature of employees bringing ideas and wanting to kind of pursue and test new things, rather than this is the way it's done and this is the way we always want to do it. So I would look at a company's values and use that as a discussion point in interviews to make sure that as you're looking for an organization, if you want that entrepreneurial feeling, that you talk about it as part of your interview process.
I also think another path is, in a big organization, you can like meet people. Actually, our company, Merit Systems, was founded in 1988. So it's a lot older than 2001. And it was somebody else at IBM had put us, knew me and put me together with another person that needed something. And he said, John can do this. And so we actually started a business on the side outside of IBM. It was with computers, and that's how the name Merit Systems came about. And we've never let the organization die out, if you will. And so we always did things on the side. And my original partner, he stayed with IBM and has retired and all that. And then I went on, I met Jim Wynn in a Boy Scout troop. I was the Scoutmaster, Radnor Troop 284. And his sons were in it, and that's how I got to meet him. And then a few years later, we decided to go in business together. It was just the right time. It was right after the '99 crash, and so it was like, okay, let's do this. And so we did. And so it helped to have a partner. I tried to do it on my own in the '90s, and it's very difficult. There's just too much to do for one person because you have to do all of the functions of a business. All right, from not just sales and marketing, but delivery and accounting and all the stuff you didn't think about. All right. And so by having a partner, you could split that workload. And this time it worked pretty well that way for us. And so we've been in this line of business, if you will. And we also have a fictitious name, Merit Career Development, which is our website. And that is where all our training business is. We advertise it on the internet, et cetera. So we have a second name or fictitious name as it's called.
So thank you. Asia, I see you're being pulled in lots of different directions. So I am going to pull you in this direction with a maybe an appropriate challenge. And that is, what entrepreneurial tricks, I'll say, have you discovered to keep you focused and productive in your day-to-day schedule?
That is a phenomenal question. And I apologize being pulled. I stay with my family now, and I'm still very much in daughter mode. So whenever they call me, I have to kind of pay attention. It's a learning process for sure.
When you have to go, you just go. And
we're learning to set boundaries. Closed doors are now closed doors. But I was actually recommended a book. So something I really have struggled with forever is time management. And I don't, it's never something that you completely master, but it's something that you could at least work on every single day. So I was recommended this book by my co-founder, actually, he's also a Penn State alum, and he's getting his PhD right now in computer science. So between managing a PhD and managing a business with me, he is a true grandmaster of managing time. And the book is called Time Tactics for Very Successful People. And it just gives like a very broad outline of different ways for you to manage your time. And some of them are conflicting ways. And it's really based on who you are as a person. So something that works for me, which may not work for other people. I like waking up and starting my day the exact same way. I wake up, I have my tea, I meditate, I exercise, and that just gives me the foundation to do everything else I need to do, which is not the same every single day. Sometimes it's meetings, sometimes it's production, sometimes it's, closing on any type of retail deal, sometimes it's testing new products. So creating a sense of normalcy at the beginning of my day helps everything else because the rest is chaos.
very nice. Thank you. So maybe this dovetails off of that. Jess earlier mentioned occasionally in the office you might work from 9 to 9. I have 2 daughters, and one works for Google, and prior to that she was a consultant with the Boston Consulting Group, and her days typically were 16 hours a day as a consultant. So the thing that a lot of, I was an executive, a lot of people struggle with is, how do you successfully balance family life with career? Does it come down to hours, or how do you manage that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think Asia was actually the one who said that sometimes it was 9 to 9 at IBM for her, but I could certainly relate to that comment and have been there for the 12, 14, 16-hour days for much of my career. I think, for me, like in terms of just family and business management, it's a little bit different, like day to day and week to week. Like if I'm in like a really creative zone and thinking like, okay, I'm going to like crank out a bunch of assets and I like have a new marketing strategy forming in my brain and I want to like spend more time on it, then I might be asking my husband to take a little bit more of the, the childcare side of things. And yet I always in each day try to spend a little bit of individual time with each of my kids just to, have even those few minutes of peace with them to just kind of laugh and smile. And it's a way for me to like recharge and step away from the computer drain a little bit. And then there's other times where, I feel like because I am an entrepreneur and because I am the CEO of a company, I can go take my kids to the park in the middle of the day or to the doctor's office. And I kind of set that tone with me and my co-founder and even partners that we outsource work to. They have that sense that, I'm not one to be like, why aren't you at your desk? And, I think there's a little bit of an asynchronous schedule emerging in general from the pandemic world. Some people need to work a few hours in the morning, homeschool their kids in the middle of the day, and then work again at the end of the day. And so for me, that's been more normal for the last handful of years, where I'll just kind of set my schedule based on what do I want to accomplish with my family and what do I need to accomplish with work. I'll say all that to also say that as an entrepreneur, you are always thinking about your business. And so I'll be with my kids, they'll do something and I'm like, oh my gosh, like something will come to me. And it's almost like those creative sparks that might emerge when I am spending time with my family. And there are often late nights where I'll be like, I need to just get this out and write it down, or early mornings. But as an entrepreneur, you want to do it. You're so liberated by this feeling that you can run with an idea and build something that I want to spend the time on work. And then my favorite job is being a mom. So I want to spend time with my kids. And sometimes you feel guilty one way or another, but in general, I think I try to make it work.
Thank you. So JJ and Asia, I'll let you fight over who's going to take which of these questions. One is, what was your biggest mistake? And the other is, how do you deal with failure, what you learn from failing? Biggest mistake, how do you deal with failure? You could grab either one, whoever gets in there first.
I'll take the failure. You should expect to have failures. All right. In fact, there's books on decision making by the Heath brothers, and you make decisions and expect to be wrong, and that happens more than you think. All right, but you have to be prepared for wrong. And I think that you have to. I do a lot of risk management. It's kind of like my way my brain thinks. It's like, well, what if this don't work? Then what? What if that don't work? Then what? And so you're going to have failures throughout in our case, 20 years. And so you have to know what you could do is you could put some stakes in the ground. So you say, look, if we pass here and it ain't working, we're going to abandon ship. All right. And so you're going to try different paths, different directions. And they're not always going to be the right ones. And so you're going to have failures throughout the process. And some have nothing to do with you. All right. It's like when they blew up the buildings in New York. Okay, we're fourth month in business and we lost $40,000. A great way to start. Okay, and then we had we planned for the recession in 2008-9, and we planned it and actually anticipated it and took some steps that were the right ones, that we were able to get through that and still be alive. Difficult, yes. Okay, and certainly expensive times, difficult times, and similarly with this. One we had for this situation, we had the right pieces in place. So although we took a giant hit in revenue in March and April this year being a training company, well, guess what? It's just like Penn State. There's no training, okay? There's no school. No one wants it. So your revenue goes to zero like overnight, and we had nothing to do with that. So yeah, is that a failure? Yeah, you could look at it if you say, well, how much revenue did you have in March? Well, not too much, okay? And but then we had the pieces in place. That's just you anticipate and say, what if things? So we had the pieces to go online. We actually surpassed 2019 in revenue. Okay, not by a lot, but by a little bit, but I'll take it. That's a miracle. But we had the right pieces. So you do a lot of risk management, planning to be wrong, planning to have failures, and hopefully your risk management plans are there and they come into play and they turn into success. And so it was just, you have to think like that. And so plan on being wrong and then have a backup plan A, B, C, D. You might need them. you know, and to us, that's come in real handy.
Asia, are there any learning points you might want to share around the topics of a professional mistake or how one deals with failure?
Of course. JJ, you bring up a great point. I like the main thing is really just your point of perspective. You can look at a failure and it can cripple you, even if it's something that's super small, or you can look at a failure and you can brush it off and just keep on moving. When you ask the question, it's like, what's a failure you've had? And I was like, there's been like a lot of times where we've like, my co-founder and I have like blank stared at the computer screen because we have no idea what to do next. And I guess those are probably, in hindsight, they're very funny. In the moment, they're not, and they definitely feel like failures. An example for us, we were trying to get our holiday inventory ready. We needed 3,000 units of product, and we were working with a contractor to do that. And we gave them ample time. We ordered all of the equipment. We paid all of our bills, and we didn't sign a contract. We did it on like good faith. And then the day that we were supposed to receive product, we needed 10 batches of units, and they had only completed 3. And they were like, oh, well, you know, we'll have it done by this time. And mind you, this is like October 1st, and the process for our product takes a month to make. And we were freaking out because we're hearing all of this stuff like Black Friday is going to be the entire month of November. And it was a wildly stressful time. And then in the end, we were like, okay, let's make another deal. Still no contract. And then at the end, we needed 3,000 units, and they're like, we're only going to send you like 2,000, but that's fine. You don't have to pay us for the difference. And we were like, what do you mean we don't have to pay for the difference? Of course we don't. There's nothing that was made. But now that's something we can laugh about in hindsight. So now we always have a contract. We always get everything in writing, and we have like some sort of penalty and clarification if something, you know, isn't delivered within the time frame that was discussed. So I think that's probably the biggest failure that we can now laugh about. In the moment, it was not funny at all. It was very, very terrifying and bad. But again, a matter of perspective.
So some people face failure. Maybe it's a cash flow problem. And if you don't have deep pockets or line of credit, that could be the end of your business. Face that over, especially if you've already maxed out all your credit cards, you've borrowed from your friends, you have a second mortgage on your house, and then things go down the toilet, as was the case with someone that Leo and I work with at Penn State. He had a huge order and stuff in inventory ready to go for this big purchase order. And the headlines of the New York Times had to do with Enron in the morning, and it dominoed down, and he's now at Penn State instead of the most. But some people decide, well, I'm going to do it again, I'm going to do it again, I'm going to do it again. And very often it is a financial crisis. So I'm wondering how, any of you, how did you get funded, or what creative strategies did you or do you execute on external cash flow?
Cash flow is the key to success. So you pointed out, you know, you're with a associated with a failure, and it's a never-ending thought process. And so some of the things you can do is, to me, you have to choose who you do business with. All right, there are in some companies, you look at their contracts, they want, like we had one, a very large company, and we read their contract, and they wanted payment terms of 75 days. That's 2.5 months. All right, and I have to like pay my instructor, and I get no money for 2.5 months. What's that about? You know, so we did was say, okay, no problem. We'll charge you 60% deposit up front. Okay, and so then that solved the cash flow problem. All right. And we also choose not to do business with some companies because they are long payers. All right. And if you don't pay in a timely manner, we won't do business with you. That's all. And I think that's one of the great things about entrepreneurship and running your own business is that you could choose who you want as a customer. And you can fire customers too. You could say, hey, this customer sucks and I don't want to do business with them anymore. You don't have to be mean to them. You don't just have to tell them, just, oh, I'm busy. Sorry, we're booked. Okay. Sorry, I don't have the capacity to handle your order. All right. Gee, that's too bad. Try somebody else, and I've done that several occasions, fired customers. And I had arguments with other entrepreneurs saying you can't do that. I said, yes, you can. That's one of the whole, to me, beauties of being in business for yourself is you could choose, especially with this, the problem that you highlighted, Doug, is that the cash flow is a reason to fire a customer. All right. If I don't, in that, because I don't need somebody who I do all the work and then you don't pay me. All right, now you get then. So we've been real careful about that. Now you have certain things like the recession of 8, 9, 10, whatever you want to say it started. Okay, so we had lines of credit and we ate into them, and that helped us stay alive. And yeah, when things turned around, we paid them off. Okay, in fact, we still have a little left from then before we rack them up. But you have to plan on rough times, cash flow wise. And if you can get a line of credit, like from a bank for 100 or 200 grand, that's helpful. But you have to really watch that cash flow, what you said. And to me, choosing the right customers is how we were able to do that.
I'll jump in and add to what JJ was saying. I think the customers that you want to fire are usually your teeny tiny ones anyway, that aren't really giving you very much. You're like, it wasn't a significant amount of revenue, but you were a huge headache. So I'm really happy to get rid of you. At least that's been my experience. But I'll say in the world that we're in today, the gig economy has become kind of such a reality for so many people. So we were all talking about our primary focuses previously were our side hustle. I think, when I think about cash flow, or if things are looking like our forecast isn't going to match what we had expected, or we need a little bit more, I plan to flex into my side hustle, which is now my consulting. So you go back to your network. And again, this is about keeping your network strong. Because I feel that if I needed to reach out to someone and say, hey, do you need any consulting help? That I could create a consulting opportunity to help support and fund LLUNA as far as progressing it forward. So, I think that the gig economy and that mindset, especially among kind of people emerging from school today, will likely be beneficial in the long run, especially for those that want to pursue some type of entrepreneurial venture.
You've all mentioned network and how important that is. It strikes me in my experience, most of my career being in corporations, not running startups, although I've had a little experience there as well, that the best time to develop a network is when you can help others. You said be kind, be helpful earlier, Jess. The roughest time to start thinking about meeting people is when you're looking for a job. That's not the time to develop a network. But if you have a history of helping people out and maybe using LinkedIn or however you might go about that, that seems to me to have been valuable. So how do any of you go about marketing? Is it word of mouth? Are you proponents of getting your website in the top 3 in Google search? What do you do?
I can take this. We're direct to consumer mainly, and marketing was my field of study when I was in school. If you guys don't feel this way, I'd be very interested in how you approach marketing, but I feel like marketing strategy is something they teach you in school, is something being really rigid, and then when it's actually in execution, it changes at any given moment because you're not reacting, but marketing is, I would think, probably 2 times listening versus 1 times putting out actual information, because you want to make sure that the marketing that you're putting out is going to be received in a way that's best, which means you need to know what people are looking to hear. So what we do, we built our entire brand off of Instagram, just because of our target market, which has worked for us and the way that we kind of have expanded that is just looking at how our voice stays consistent across all of our experiences. So we kind of, since we're a small team, it's me and my co-founder and our social media manager. We use our community to kind of help us with our marketing. And that looks like, our customer reviews, we repurpose as social media captions, or anytime someone posts a picture and talks about the product, then we use that in an email campaign. So it's very much a working relationship with our customers, which also makes them feel like they've been seen and feel more emotionally committed to the brand, because it's not just some big L'Oreal corporation and selling you things that you don't really feel connected to, but it's a small company, and we're listening, and we're here, and we're people, and we are excited to hear about what you're saying about our products.
I think that what you do makes sense, but you have to look at who your customer is. In Asia, for selling to consumers, that sounds like you're doing the right things to reach them. We do business to business. And so marketing is a total failure and a waste of money. All right. And we've tried it on several occasions. It's all we do is throw money down a drain. And so basically we quit marketing. We don't do any marketing. We have a website, we keep it up to date. We tried email marketing, but see, consumers aren't going to buy what we have. The price tags it's not for anybody to buy. It's business to business. And so you don't usually get business to business through Instagram. Okay, that's not going to work. In fact, we've had none. And through any of the internet, but we have to have it because it's like a business card. You have to have a nice website. All right, so that's that. Ours has all been through contacts, people we meet, and then we work the contact base and within organizations, and that's how we've been able to land new business. All right, is really that way, one-on-one, more like sales and contacts that we had. Marketing to us is just, like I said, we tried content marketing, we tried this, we tried that, and I could just show you a lot of payments and no money, nothing. I can't point to any revenue, not one deal. Actually, we had one in all of these years that came from like an email marketing campaign. So it didn't pay for all the money we spent. So we're on the opposite end of the spectrum than you. Jess, where are you?
I think I'm probably somewhere in between the two of you, since we're also a B2B platform. So we're targeting the companies as our buyer. And I find that posting, like kind of my own posting on LinkedIn is a way to just stay visible and connected again to that network. Or, if someone in your network likes your post, then someone else may see it, and then that's like, oh, that's interesting. What's Jess doing? So we have a presence on Instagram, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn in terms of social media. That's just intending to put out that steady flow of content. We're still pretty early in our journey, so it's hard to say if and when those posts would actually convert. What we're also doing is start like trying to just like sign up or be nominated or into like pitch competitions, or we just were named to Technically Philly's like Real List of 2021, the 20 companies to watch, and that got broadcast from Technically. Then they wrote an article about us, and I had a lot of outreach as a result of that. So that like earned media is actually, I think, where we will do the best if we can continue to try to make that happen. I'm sure, Asia, you could speak to being in the New York Times. I bet you that did a whole lot of good for you from a marketing perspective. That'll be my aspiration. I want to be in the New York Times one day.
That's good. In the book, the Lean Startup, there is a caution that you have to be careful of looking at the right metrics. Like Facebook likes don't necessarily translate into revenue. So it must feel great to get all the attention from social media, and then is it the right way to spend your time and your money? I guess is something that you have to go back and evaluate. Or maybe you might get data from that says, gee, I should change a little bit what I'm doing. There seems to be interest in something. nobody's really responding to exactly what I'm looking at. So while our panelists take 30 seconds to catch their breath, have a glass of water, take care of their pet in 30 seconds, I'd like them to be thinking about something that Asia volunteered earlier. Is there a source, a website, a workshop experience you've had, or specifically a book that you might recommend to young entrepreneurs, not necessarily on time management, although that is very important, but if there's something that you could advise people to, gee, if you want to look at one or two sources to get something of value, take a look at, and I'm going to come back in 25 seconds and ask you your thoughts on that, okay? And I'm counting, so now it's 22 seconds.
Are you just giving us time to think about it, or is this for us to stand up and stretch?
I'm giving myself a break for water.
Okay, I'm gonna run and get some water then. I have a bunch, so hopefully I can think of more in my little break. I'll be right back.
And then in a few minutes, we're coming around to 5:30. We'll see if there are any questions that came up on the chat board, and then we'll be subsequent to that wrapping up. Leo will give us kind of a time check as to where we are in the agenda. Okay, John is gone, so I'm going to pick on you, Jess. Is there some source of information, a weekend, a Tech Fest weekend in Washington, D.C.? I participated in a pitch contest there, and I won. Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, but there are some great books. There are good workshops. People who are involved in our LaunchBox at Penn State have access to what's called the LLUNA Entrepreneur, which is a library of really good information that's been collected that would be available to them, electronic soft copies of the whole course. Are there things that come to mind that you might recommend to those getting started to get a sense of don't quit your daydream?
Yeah, great. It's a great question. I think there's so much incredible content that's out there. Podcasts have been I think a tremendous channel for just even if you search kind of on the topic that you want to hear about, there's just so much good information and dialogue out there that's, even if you don't agree with what the podcaster is saying, it makes you think. So kind of reflecting, and it's easy to do with like your earbuds in and going wherever you might be going. So not a specific podcast in general, but I would just say that as a channel has been one I rely on a great deal. I'm currently reading, so this is a little bit of like recency bias, but I'm currently reading Adam Grant's Think Again, and another just way to like stop and think about things in a different way, and why do you kind of firmly believe that, or is there a way to continue to evolve your thinking? And I think in with the pace of change in our world, given how quickly technology evolves, the idea of thinking again is super relevant to right now. And as an entrepreneur, you are constantly thinking again about like, okay, how do I kind of iterate on this business model? How do I make it better? How do I make my customers' experience better? How do I make the product or platform better? So I would say Adam Grant's Think Again, or really anything Adam Grant, especially that's my space. So his podcast Work Life is another great one. I'll stop there and let the others contribute too.
Go ahead, Asia.
Sure. Podcast is exactly where I was going to go. So before I started my business, and this is for anyone that may know exactly what they want to do versus I want to do something, I just don't know what it is yet. There's a podcast called Side Hustle School. It's an everyday podcast. It's no more than 10 minutes, and they do spotlights on individual businesses that are making anywhere from $500 a month all the way up to, $50,000 a month. And they kind of talk about what the founder story is. And it's meant to just be a bit of inspiration to give you an idea of what people are able to make money off of. And there's B2B businesses, there's B2C businesses, service type businesses, anything you can think of, it's there. And they also have it really nicely filtered on their website. So anywhere you are in your journey, even if it's, I still reference back to see if there's any type of cosmetics businesses. And I'm like, what are people that are doing the same thing as me doing? It's just a good way to kind of do some market research. So Side Hustle School for sure. Another podcast is called Everybody Hates Marketers. And John, I know you said that you don't do any type of marketing, but I think you're doing the best and most traditional form of marketing, which is networking and word of mouth, because your reputation drives your entire business. And I think that's the one that, you being in sales at IBM, I know that program was rigorous, especially probably when you went, it was top notch. So you definitely have some secrets that you probably have, as second nature to you at this point. But that really kind of breaks down what marketing is, because no matter what business you're doing some form of marketing. Me and John, like we said, are on opposite side of the spectrum, but you're going to have to talk about your business and you have to be able to share it with people and get them to buy into it for you to be successful. Otherwise, it's just a hobby because it's just you putting in money. So I would say those are the two biggest resources that are both free, that are helpful at any point of your journey.
Very good. I'd say if I had to recommend one book, I'd say as an entrepreneur, you make a lot of decisions and some are going to be good and some are not so good. So mine is always, how can you make better decisions? And I like Daniel Kahneman's book, Nobel Prize winner. In 2011, he wrote Thinking Fast and Slow. There are some knockoffs on it on Amazon, by the way, and it's thick and it's white covered, and it's Daniel Kahneman is the author. And it's all about how to make better decisions, how your brain works, common mistakes that we all make that are natural, all right? And we make them. In fact, I even took that and we added a few other texts and turned it into a class. And it's one of our favorite, actually a popular class that we teach, how to make better decisions. And and to me, if you had to read one book, that would be it, is really you have, and continue along that line of improving your, Decisive is another one by the Heath brothers. And I could go on for those, but to me, is you're in charge. And so everything depends on you making the right decision. All right. When you make a wrong one, it can cost you a lot of money, a bad hire. All right. Or just the wrong firm, or in your case, not having a contract and that costs you a lot of money. So things like that, where you really want to make the best decisions you can. And to me, that text is one that I go to. I have it there. I use it all the time, or his lessons that he talks about. So to me, that would be one recommendation for entrepreneurs, is make better decisions. Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow is just a great text.
Yeah, it's a great book. And it's interesting that you would bring that up. It's kind of a psychology type of social psychology approach to understanding how you make decisions. So I was struck, it was an eye opener. It kind of woke me up a little. I don't have an MBA, but in business school, and I'm sure John at Wharton, they teach Porter's 5 forces, and entrepreneurship is about a business plan. And then speaking to Leo, I've never written a business plan. Who needs a business? So you probably have that somehow congealed in your thinking as you're starting a business, but you may or may not have a formal document. And I get together 4 times a year with other leaders from the other 24 Penn State campuses, talking about what our Launchpad is doing and they're all, for the most part, professors who haven't been in startups as a life career, and they know so much about what one teaches in B school. And then you speak to people who are actually in the world starting businesses, and they never heard of those formal structures that we're teaching people to be in corporations for a world that doesn't exist if you're starting your own company. And I think if you have a mentor or someone, or in the case of today, at least a little tiny peek into where can I get started learning about what it's really like, where the rubber hits the road, I think that's very, very helpful. Rio, how are we doing? We have some questions that have come in, but I don't want to hold the meeting over time.
Yeah, we have one question that came in. I sent you it in the direct messaging. I answered it in the messaging, but I would love to get everyone else's opinion on it. I also want to just jump in. My entrepreneurial spirit to contribute is just gnawing at me, and I can't shut it up. But I wanted to just point out two things that that everyone has been talking about that I think is really powerful. One is, as far as resources, podcasts I think are invaluable. But the other thing I think that is really entrepreneurship in general, particularly in the early stage, then it kind of gets a little bit easier, and then you have to cross the chasm to growth. And those they can be relatively aggressive, and they can be relatively traumatic. And it's very, very easy to lose focus on why you're doing this to begin with. It's very easy to lose focus as to who you really are within the context of your business and what you're trying to. So once a year, I read a book called Designing Yourself. And it is hard to find. If you do find it on Amazon, it's probably 3 times what it should be. But it's like $60, $65 now. I mean, it's a really ridiculous, but it's not a book that's really going to change the way you see business or change, but it just sort of resets you back to keeping true to your creative core and keeping true to why you're doing it. And if you really base your decisions based on why you're doing things, you find your path gets a little bit easier. Every time I've strayed off of my path of why, I've always ended up someplace I didn't want to be. And very expensive, very time consuming, and very just draining in general to navigate back. So I 100% agree with what Doug said. Mentorship, resources, there are so many resources. It's sort of like a nutrition plan or like a workout plan. There really isn't a right or wrong one. If you go to the gym every day, whether or not you're doing, high intensity training, you're doing weight training, you're doing yoga, you're doing anything will work as long as you're committed to doing it. And then once you get committed to doing it and you start to see the results and you start to feel what works for you, you start to fine tune what works for you. And resources like the LaunchBox, resources like Score, and all of it, they are just absolutely invaluable to get other people's perspectives. There's no book that's going to teach you how to start a business. And like Doug said of my original comment, I don't believe in business plans. I don't believe in business plans, not because they don't work, but because there is no such thing as a plan to start a business. Because as soon as I'm not saying you shouldn't have a plan. I'm saying, but you cannot follow a plan and start a business. You have to have a plan and expect that plan to go totally sideways. And then you have to create a new plan. And then you have to adjust your plan. And if you're not ready for that, and if you look at it purely academically and say, here's my plan, it's not going to work. I've never seen it work. You have to be flexible, you have to be agile, and you have to stay true to what you're doing. So that's just my 2 cents. Anyway, Doug, we have one more. We have the one question I sent you, and then why don't we just ask everybody the final question since we're starting to run out of time, and then we'll wrap up.
Question from Chang Yi Tsai.
Yes.
How do you start your business? Should I have a lot of money and be very strong in technical skills before I start business? And I just lost. Okay.
Yeah, so the crux of the question is,
what is the foundation that you need if you're not, if on the risk averse side, you're a little risk averse, is this a good thing for you to be thinking about? Do you need a lot of money? What sort of foundation should be in place before you quit and tell your spouse or partner or family, I'm not employed anymore, but I have a great idea?
Yeah, the feedback I've gotten, and this kind of ties back to what you were saying, Leo. Don't quit your job. Like, keep your job as long as possible. Keep your main source of income as long as possible. Even if you're making money with your business, keep your main job as long as possible. I only quit my job recently because I'm now living at home with my parents. I don't have to pay rent. But Leo, to your point before, where you were talking about, creating a plan, there's something very different between creating a business plan and just creating a plan for yourself. I think something that I've also learned is like separating myself from the business, because when you're thinking about it all of the time and you're working on it all the time, you feel like you become the business and you measure your success based on the business's success. And it's two different entities. Like, once you form a corporation or an LLC, it gets taxed separately than you. And I look at it now as like a separate person that I can't see. But when you're thinking about a plan for yourself, that's definitely something that you can make. And I just had like a transparency talk with other like female founders yesterday. So I'm happy to share the transparency here with you all also, because people normally don't like to talk about numbers, and I'm so small. I'm like, I don't really mind talking about numbers. For me, I knew my safety net. I needed $20,000 in my bank account in cash before I could do anything that looked like leaving a job. And that was just calculated from what my monthly expenses were. If I had any type of emergency money, I wanted to be able to live a year without any type of real salary working on the business to help it grow. And that's what I personally needed. It might be different for other people. I've known people that have quit their job with debt. And I was like, that would not have worked for me. But to Leo's point, we didn't have a business plan. I had like an idea, but I had a plan for myself to make it work for me as I'm working on the business, so I don't have like the guilt and the stress and the anxiety, which of course still comes because that's what it is to run a business. But I just wanted to address that. And you don't need a lot of money. We started our business. Here's where I can give you the numbers. We started our business with $7,000 investment, which was packaging, our first run, and like social media here and there, and getting everything designed. And then last year, so we launched in July 2019. 2020 was our first full year with COVID. We did $100,000, just over $100,000 in revenue. So you don't need a lot of money. We got one grant. We haven't had to reinvest. It's been self-sustaining at this point. So no, you don't need a lot of money, and you should start sooner rather than later, because it's not going to be perfect no matter what.
You use the term a personal plan, Asia, and I don't know what yours is, but I'm guessing that as a company grows and becomes more sophisticated and self-sustaining and maybe is quite large, the person who started it, who had a certain passion, who's still running the company as a founder, may not have the right skill set and may not, for some reason or other, I'm not so happy anymore. Is that part of your personal plan, knowing when you want to do something else?
For me, some advice I got from a mentor recently, and Jess and JJ, I think you both mentioned this when you were talking about outsourcing work or like finding your team or knowing what you actually want to do. A mentor told me it's like, find and cultivate what your superpower is and just focus on that for the business. And for me, that really stems from marketing, design, and storytelling. The only times when I feel like I want to throw myself out of the building and burn my business to the ground is anytime I have to deal with stuff around supply chain. Please do not include me in any supply chain meetings. Please do not include me in any operations meetings, because those are the moments when I feel like I'm like, this business thing can go. I don't need this anymore. But those are the only times I've ever felt the way that you're mentioning, Doug. It's when I'm doing the things that are not my personal superpower. Otherwise, I love doing it every day. I was like, I don't need to get paid for this. This is just bringing me joy. So that would be my advice. Find your superpower and just do that. And then it won't even feel like work.
Thank you. Leo, do you want to go to the final wrap-up question to the group?
Yeah, I think that's good, since we only have 15 minutes left. So I think I'd like to get everybody's perspective on that, and then we can wrap up.
Okay, so we have one question before we wrap up the meeting, and that will give each of you an opportunity to think about this for a moment. What piece of advice would you give to college graduates who want to become entrepreneurs? So we heard lots of pieces of this, I think, over the last hour. Now you have to put it into an elevator speech.
Doug, I can start if we're ready. I won't repeat any of. I think some of the things we've already talked through are definitely valuable. But what I would say is ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? Because at the end of the day, like when you kind of bottom that out, like the worst that can happen really probably isn't that bad. At the I always said when I left my great job at a boutique consulting firm, I was like, what's the worst that can happen? I'm like, well, Starbucks would hire me. Somebody will hire me again, or I go work for another consulting firm, or I go back to that one. Like you kind of ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen? So if you fail, if the business doesn't succeed, if your idea wasn't what you thought it was, and you say, what's the worst that can happen? I think it starts to give you a little bit of peace of mind that there's, if you're someone that's interested in taking that leap in the first place, you're probably scrappy enough to find your way back to something else on the other side of the success or the failure. So I would just say, ask yourself and really get to that answer. What is the worst that could happen if you do it?
I'd say you have to be emotionally committed to it too, mentally. I mean, especially in the beginning, you should figure on putting in a lot of time, and you want to like doing it. That's the thing. You have to make sure you like doing it, because you're going to be doing it a lot. All right. And so I'd say that's, to me, the key to success is to have that enjoyment of it, and so that you pursue the idea for real with passion. If you don't have the emotional commitment to it, it's not going to work, because it's going to be in just another job, and it's not just another job. I can tell you that there's more headaches than you want, and you might be there till 1 a.m. some days. I was there even just within this past year, several nights like that. And like you said, you wake up at night with a piece of an idea in your head, and you make sure you have that pencil on your nightstand, so you write it down so you don't forget it by tomorrow morning when you wake up. I mean, it has to be part of you. And it is like you mentioned, I think it was Asia, you create a LLC or however your structure that you like, but it's like it's like having another kid, and you treat it like a real person. And so I think you have to have an emotion of compassion for it, and you have to be committed to give it all. And that's, if you don't, then it's just another job. You might as well just get a job for another big company. It's be easier for you. At least you'll get vacations.
So funny. I know I've spoken a lot, but John, mine comes literally back to yours, where you're saying like there's an emotional commitment. My one piece of advice, since you're making such a big emotional commitment, you can think of it as a child, you can think of it as a partner, especially if you are planning on having a business partner. Just date your idea. Just try it out, test it out, see if it works for you, see if you like doing that, see if you're okay coming home after your 6 p.m. job and you're excited to work on your project, because that's most likely what's going to happen in the beginning. And if you aren't excited about doing it and it's not energizing you, then that might not be the route for you. And it's okay. So I would suggest just dating your idea. Don't feel like you need to make a huge commitment. You don't jump into marriage. Think of it as like that level of commitment. And just see what works for you, because it's a very large commitment. We're all here talking to you very like calmly, but this isn't what it looks like.
Thank you. Before we completely wrap up, and maybe Leo has a few last words, I'd like to acknowledge a few people. Many people made this evening possible. Foremost, our entrepreneur panelists, Asia, John, Jess, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Of course, Leo, the Great Valley LaunchBox director, who, by the way, will send me texts at 3 in the morning, which I read several hours later. But also our committee organizer, Kendra Michner, and maybe more than anyone, the woman behind the screen and the face of the clock who dealt with all the technical issues so successfully that you weren't even aware of them, Becky Stanko. Thank you so much, Becky. Before I sign off, I just want to say I'm looking forward to seeing you all at the Lion Cage pitch competition. And from my standpoint, that concludes the event. Leo, I'll let you wrap it up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doug. Just want to thank you guys one more time for taking the time out of your schedules to do this. It is very much appreciated, and I'll be in touch with all of you in the near future. And thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
This was
you.
great.
All right.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to
All right.
meet you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Likewise. Bye-bye.